Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Jeffrey Seay is a retired NCIS Special Agent and an author. Fortunate for us, he writes about what he knows best, and the result, well, an action thriller series you just can't put down. Carver is the first in the NCIS Special Agent Ruben Carver series. Set in Southeast Asia, we're introduced to NCIS Special Agent Ruben Carver, exotic locations, international intrigue, and yes, some butt-kicking along the way. Author Jeffrey Seay spent over half of his career in the Far East in counterintelligence, counter-terrorism, and force protection operations. He was the first personal security advisor to the commander of the 7th Fleet, also completing a decorated tour of Iraq, running counterintelligence collection operations in support of the Coalition Provisional Authority from fall of 2003 to the spring of 2004. Now he splits his time between San Diego and Tokyo. Since his retirement in 2007, he's built the security and fraud investigations departments for 3 multinational firms. A graduate of the University of Southern California in Business Administration, law degree from Whittier Law School, Jeffrey Seay, author of Carver, part of the NCIS Special Agent Ruben Carver series, and he's with us on This Week in America. Jeffrey, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
Looking forward to talking about the series, and it's interesting how this whole thing began. You sort of described it as an oh crap moment in life, and we all go through those. That was sort of the inspiration, like, okay, I'm going to do something, and I guess I'm going to write this series.
That's right. I mean, that's exactly right. I was working for a firm in Tokyo, and they didn't renew my contract. The mandatory retirement ages over there for a lot of firms is 60 years old, and at that time I was pushing 62, and they were kind of looking at somebody that they thought was going to, needed to kind of carry the program forward. So they didn't renew the contract, and I was just sort of sitting there now without a job. My wife was working, and it was kind of one of those situations where I just didn't want her, coming home and finding me with sitting next to a bottle of scotch in my head playing video games. So I just started writing. It really started with a single sentence. The very first sentence of Carver was really how it got started. It said the phone woke him, and that was it. I mean, I just started typing, and although the first book was probably the easiest one to navigate through because it was fresh and I had the story there. The truth of the matter is I had no idea what I was doing in writing a novel. My formal writing education really came from my junior and senior years in high school, and probably English 101 at Grossmont College with Dr. Bradley. So, I mean, this is all was all relatively new to me, and I just kind of felt my way through it. I had the book written in 3 months, and then with the editing process and having to cover stuff, I actually sent it out to a number of agents, and realizing how much time it would take to actually find one and then get anybody interested in actually publishing it, likely to put it on a shelf for the next 3 years. I was getting too old to wait around for that, so I just decided to go the indie route and went and self-published. And it's actually been pretty successful. I've really been happy with it. And since then, I've written another 3 novels on top of that one, and I'm right in the middle of my 5th one now.
It's interesting. It's almost like, as I'm reading through this and the background I know on you, sort of what you like to read, the fast pace, the character development, that type of thing. What you sort of went from your gut instincts then in the beginning. It wasn't like a formal writing course and you sit down and check off, the various outline ideas. This came out of something that you liked, right?
Yeah, that's right. It was just, you write what you know.
Yes.
And for the most part, you write what you like to read. And, and of course, I should say something about where I'm at. But I mean, I grew up with, when I was a little boy, there was the Hardy Boys, and then of course the Nancy Drew mysteries that I'd pulled those out of my sister's bedroom, and and then when I got into junior high, I discovered Ian Fleming, and then from there it just went on and on and on. Now this is kinds of other types of genres and nonfiction, but for the most part, I'd learned I learned the genre simply by reading and reading a lot, and just as the pleasure reading. When I went to law school, things changed a little bit. As one student had mentioned to me a couple of years after we got out, was the fact that law school had ruined her for pleasure reading for years.
Oh, I'm
And
sure. Yes.
yeah, well, it's yeah. Anyway, that's kind of where we were at. But this is when I decided to do this. It just seemed quite natural to go in this direction and with this genre, and I've been pretty successful with it.
You have been, and we're talking about the first in the series, NCIS Special Agent Ruben Carver. The book is called Carver. It's available all across the country, a number of websites, and Jeffrey's website as well. I'll give you the information on that here in a second. You can link on directly to Jeffrey's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You mentioned the phone woke him. That's how you started. The phone woke him, Agent Carver, at 3:45 in the morning. Is that when you would get phone calls? I mean, was that typical that you in the middle of the night, you would get a phone call and it's like, I can't tell you much, but get down here real quick?
Yeah, it was. That's not uncommon. If you talk to any special agent who's field agent, especially when they've got duty a couple of times a month, it's whenever the crime occurs, it's not generally 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're gonna get woken up at night. There's everything from a assault and battery, or a homicide. There's going to be an arson. These kinds of things ordinarily take place at night, and when they call you, it's early in the morning. Yeah.
And you talk about the recall roster was initiated, and you said this is unusual with the recall. It must be something serious. Talk about exactly what that is.
Well, when the guy calls you at 3:45 in the morning, and he tells you you're the next guy on the list. If they're bringing the entire office in, for some type of event that's occurred, it's just going to be serious. It's going to be something. I mean, it isn't going to be for somebody's birthday. We're talking about something that has to warrant a full recall to get to bring the agents in. And if it's a full court press, then somebody's died. Something of national security has occurred. There's something that's going on with a ship in port. Something has occurred, and you've got to be. You understand this when you get in the car and you go into the office. If they don't tell you what it is, it's because it's just too big to discuss over the telephone. They just need you to come in.
And in this case, you've got the 7th Fleet involved. You've got 3 agents that are dead. Give us a little bit about the storyline. It's fascinating because you've got a terrorist group that you think's linked back to Al-Qaeda. You've got the FBI that really wants a piece of the action, and you're trying to get things resolved before the FBI gets involved. Talk about exactly what happened that sets up the story.
Well, initially, I with the other books. Let me just paraphrase this. When I got to the other books, I tried to set things up so that there was some action involved right in the very beginning, so that it really drew the reader in. When I started with Carver, it was one of those situations where I had the kernel of the story in mind, but I didn't really know how at that time I really wanted to proceed with it. So I started with just the introduction of the main character. And then with the telephone call with the knowledge that he went in. Now, what happened is that, and I drew this out in a couple of chapters, is that they had, or at least in the first chapter, was he got there, he still didn't know what was going on. He was being called into the special, the SAC's office, special agent in charge, and had to do with some things that had gone on, in Singapore and Malaysia, but he didn't really know what was going on. I finished that chapter though with, and then they found the bodies. So you drew the readers in, and now okay, this has to do with something with regard to dead agents. what I wanted to do was draw a kind of an action suspense with enough twists in it that involved not only the dead agents and the one missing, but also kind of bring in some of a fictionalized approach towards some of the historical or stuff that had been going on recently. Some of the things that are going on, for instance, with the corrupt husbanding agent. There was, as you probably are aware, it's because it had been in the news quite a bit, was the fact that there was a husbanding agent, a guy that actually was a contractor that took care of ships that came into port with everything from, from fresh supplies, foods, storage, and whatnot, and fuel. That had been able to maintain or build his business around ship visits within from the United States Navy. And
Yeah, it made all the headlines. I do remember that quite vividly.
he basically bribed his way to the top of the heap when it came to the husbanding business. And at any rate, this guy was in fact enormous. He was corpulent to the extreme. I mean, he tipped the scales about 500 pounds. And I thought this was would be, at least use that imagery as a kind of a neat character as part of the scheme around the bad guys. Now, things really start to change when you realize first they assume that this was a terrorist attack. Turns out that it's not. I don't want to give a lot away from in the book, but the reality is that it really kind of boils down around three characters who are the main bad guys. One of them is an NCIS agent that was co-opted by the husbanding agent. And there's the husbanding agent who's really just a pawn of another individual. Who you will find out later is a part of the United States government effort and diplomatic effort there in Malaysia.
The story unfolds very quickly, doesn't it? It really is fast-paced, and as you're reading it, it's like, okay, it's 2:00 in the morning. I should probably put the book down, but just give me a couple more chapters here tonight, and suddenly you're really making progress in the book. You don't want to put it down.
I appreciate that. I guess the fact of the matter is, it's something that I want to read, and I don't want to be bored writing it. So, there's a lot of these things that occur within me when I'm writing these things. There's a lot of surprises too. There's, I have an idea of how a chapter is going to go, and I'm going to set up a scene, and then all of a sudden, I type something that's just, I want to know where that came from, and everything starts to shift. There's also an element in there when I'm the detail that I try to put into the books and the detail that I put in Carver. It's over the top. I'll give you that, and it is a fiction. But the underlying process, the underlying procedures, all of that is with regard to NCIS is real. It's true. I mean, it's. In many cases, it's how we think about things, and it's how we talk. It's just, and the communication is all very genuine. But everything else, once I hit a point where I realize I need an action sequence in here just to keep to keep the tension on with the readers. It just came out.
Yeah, as I'm reading the book, and we're talking about Carver, that's the first in the NCIS Special Agent Ruben Carver series. The book's available all across the country. Information at jeffreyseay.com, and Seay is S-E-A. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to Jeffrey's website. Get information on the book.
I'm sorry, it's actually S-E-A-Y.
I'm sorry, S-E-A-Y, Jeffrey C, SEAY.com. I'm glad you corrected that. They'd be in there and that it would get sped out. Go to our website if we just confused you, if I just confused you. Thisweekinamerica.us, you can link on directly and get that information. Yes, I'm reading that. I'm getting the impression that I'm getting sort of the curtain pulled back a little bit to see into what you went through, the world of counterintelligence and espionage, that type of thing. Is most of this is based on your life? I mean, what you did. I mean, fictionalized to an extent, but information that you lived through.
Every location I wrote about, I'd been there. I'd been on the ground. I dealt with individuals that I very similar to the ones that I write about. A lot of the dialogue that I had during, that I wrote in the book, is dialogue these are conversations that I
Yes.
actually had with people. So yeah, that's why the first book was was really quite easy to write. This is not a memoir, please. It's strictly fiction, and it is over the top, but the underlying foundation of the work is pretty true.
I mentioned before in Carver, and we see this with other terrorist groups in the remainder of the series, China Code, the Istanbul Agent, the jihadist list, and working on, I understand, Centrifuge, where it's sometimes difficult. You think this is an affiliate of Qaeda. Let's say a couple minutes left in the program. How difficult is it sometimes to figure out the affiliation of some of these terrorist groups?
Yeah, I don't. That's, I guess, a good question. Most of it, the information that we get and any of the affiliation that these organizations have has to do with the information that we collect from a source network. It might be from our own source network with NCIS, or maybe we've contacted the CIA. We've worked with the FBI. And a lot of the understanding of who these organizations are and what they represent is based on an accumulation of information that we gather from confidential sources.
It's interesting as we see things evolving in the news and talking about intelligence agencies and doubting it and show us your evidence and that whole type of thing. This really is a complicated structure, isn't it? A lot of gray areas, I assume, in there, and a lot of years developing sources.
Yeah, it's the television and the movies make it seem so easy.
Yes.
Generally speaking, when as a story unfolds in these, on television, or if you see a James Bond flick, that these sources have already been developed. But most of the time, it just requires months, if not years, of diligence to go out and find the guys. First of all, you got to be able to identify them. There's got to be some large amount or some amount of vetting. There's got to be an understanding of what they like, what they don't like. You've got to be able to get yourself into their lives to a certain degree, and be able to gain their trust. And this doesn't take. This isn't an afternoon, over coffee. This takes months of preparation. Has to understand who you're dealing with. And then at the end of the day, when you in that environment, if you've got to burn them, you've got to be able to do it, exploit them, and you have to be able to burn them without conscience to some degree. If you know that what it is that you're doing and what it really involves.
Yes.
But you don't. I say that the idea here is that's the extreme circumstance. And it's always just a matter of those relationships that you develop over time, and you depending on how that relationship works out and what kind of information is developed. The point is you can have those relationships and maintain them for years. Even after retirement, you might at one point or another still be getting Christmas cards from the people that you've been dealing with. These aren't bad people that you're. Most of the source information that you come by, you get not just from some guy that you pull in because he's a dirtbag, but we've developed sources inside intelligence networks, police departments, security services of the other foreign national or host countries that provide the kind of information you need to be able to build your own intelligence network or your source of information.
You mentioned you have to be in a position where they gain your trust. I got about a minute left in the program. How difficult is it for you to trust anybody? I would think that's something sort of literally sleeping with one eye open.
Yeah, basically what I meant was you need to get them. You need to gain their trust.
Exactly.
you got to gain their trust. The fact of the matter is, it's rare that we, especially in the business that we're in, or I was in, is that it's rare that you trust anybody. I mean, even the information that you get, if you put it out in a report, you have to identify it as this is coming from a source that we've developed who's been able to provide us with reliable information in the past. I mean, you've got to be able to show that anything that comes out of this guy's mouth has proved to be reliable in the past, and it's likely that what he's just told me now, and I'm putting in this report, is also reliable. It's just it's trust but verify, I guess.
Yes. Well, you can see all those relationships unfold in the Carver series. Carver's is the first in the NCIS Special Agent Ruben Carver series. The book's available, of course, all across the country. Information at Jeffrey's website, which is jeffreyseay.com. Log on to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly to Jeffrey's website and get all the information there on all of the books. It's a fascinating read. One review says it grabs your attention from the first page and keeps it going until the very end. That's got to be the utmost compliment for an author, that wow, that's it, because that's obviously what you try to do, is to grab the attention right away. Sometimes you get 3-4 chapters and they're setting up the storyline and you don't make it to chapter 5 or 6 because you've given up. You're fast out of the chute, aren't you?
Yeah, I hope so. I write what I like to read. But I mean, it still doesn't satisfy every reader. Some guys just want to see pyrotechnics. They want to hear gunfire, and on every page. They want to see gunfire and knife fights on every page. So it's kind of hard. You've got to balance that. You've got to be able to balance a good storyline with credible action, and be able to wrap everything up at the end of the book with something that's satisfying to the reader, so that he'll go to the next book.
Exactly, and you have done that. We've got the 4 that we're talking about. What, Centrifuge will be coming out here at some time fairly soon?
Yeah, hopefully it'll be out this spring. I want to go back to Japan here at the end of this month, and put a capper on it. I want to be able to finish that up, so when I come back at the end of January, I'll have it ready to go to the editor.
Look forward to reading that and hopefully having a chance to talk about it. Jeffrey Seay, our guest on the program. That's Seay, jeffreyseay.com to get information on the book. We're talking about Carver, the first in the NCIS Special Agent Ruben Carver series. Jeffrey, thank you for being with us on the program.
Thanks, Rick. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're listening to This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Back after these messages.